All right, going live in three, two, one. Well, this is with the Working Title Experience. I'm up to episode number 34, and I have Sherry on again this evening. Hello, Sherry. How are you?
Hi, everybody.
There we go. Nice. Sherry's big smiley. Everyone's happy to see you to this evening. So, the how's everything going in the world of Sherry?
Everything's going pretty good. Started a new job, and so it's kind of been an interesting week learning everything, a lot of stuff to take in. But I would also like to tell everybody Happy Chinese New Year. Today is Chinese New Year. And I'd also like to say Gong Hei Fan Choi.
Oh,
Chibang. That
oh,
means have a prosperous and happy year, and Chibang means cheers.
oh, okay. Well, this is definitely a very international audience, so some of the people will probably know what you're saying. And do you speak Chinese fluently?
Nah, I'm more like a 3-year-old.
Oh. Well, that's pretty good. I can't speak it at all, so that's pretty good. I actually failed my third year of Spanish, so I'm not too good at. I know basic Spanish, so that's about as best as I can get there. So
Yeah, they actually call Chinese the calculus of language. I actually took 2 Chinese classes, but I still don't speak it fluently. So I guess the part of language didn't develop in my brain.
Mm. So how do you how did you feel about this? I always like to bring this up. This is a topic I like to talk about. How did you feel about this last storm that we had? We were discussing this last night on Tina's show. They said it was going to be like this big nor'easter, and it turns out to be virtually nothing. It's like
Yeah, I was expecting a lot more, but that's okay. I have no complaints. Less notice, less snow. Left to melt. I'm okay with that. So. But yeah, it was supposed to. They made it sound like it was like going to be some like huge event, and it was like 24 hours of snow and a little bit of ice for a couple days.
Yeah,
I did have a couple of friends who did like one of them. I'm not sure if they were pulling in their driveway or what happened, but they ended up running into something because of the black ice on the road. It was pretty bad the day after, just in the morning. Like when the snow started melting and the black ice. So I did have a couple of my friends getting a couple of fender benders, but all of their cars are being repaired, so nobody got hurt, and that's what's
nobody hurt. That's the important thing. Yeah. So, and I will say the snow here melted within a day, so it was pretty much a nothing event. So
yeah, it took about 48 hours here. So
now they're calling for another big storm this weekend, but I looked at the weather for this area and it looks like it's just rain. So it might just be the people in New York, further north in the New England area that are going to get this. So I'm not going to.
Maryland, DC area, they're a little colder than us, aren't they?
Yeah. So I don't think it's going to affect the people in our area too much. So before we go too far, we got Xavier Soto saying hi with a little, I'm not sure what that is, but a little thing on there.
It's a little wavy hand. Hi, Xavier. How are you?
We got Desmond Hosplay 3.0. He's back saying hi too. So
hello. How are you?
So before I go too far as well, I want to make sure everyone knows that if you like to support what we're doing here, there's an affiliate link in the description for NordVPN. I've used it in the past, and I do think it's a good product. So if you're looking to protect yourself, your identity, or try to keep people from prying into your private social circles, as far as using Facebook or anything like that, it works pretty good. I mean, and if you've purchased the service that's actually listed in the link below, it's actually cheaper. It's like at least half off, maybe close to a third off. I'm not sure exactly what the exact price was, but it's a pretty good deal. And like I said, if you do that, it will help support what we're doing here. We really appreciate that. So, and before we go forward, Desnal says, "I'm Brazil." Okay.
So you speak Portuguese?
Yes. So yeah, it doesn't know if you could say something in Portuguese, see if we can decode it there, or decipher translate it. Translate it. So so let's see. So did you want to check our question from last week? Or actually it was not last week. I'm sorry. January the 18th was our last show. Give me a second here.
Yeah, it was a while back.
So here we go. I think we got a pretty decent response. I think you'll like this. Here we go. So what is your favorite movie genre, and what is your favorite movie? Leave a comment below. So with overwhelmingly 66% saying action adventure. Yes, that led the lead. We got a tie in there, 13%. Looks like science fiction and horror both got the same amount. So 5% with romantic comedy and 4% with your choice. So let's see. Now, I don't know if I showed you this the last time I was here, we were on, but I have this little thing. I have this little magnifying glass that allows us to see things a little bit better here. So, Christian Blessing Balbio says, I have a fascination for something of historic sentiments. Okay.
Oh, so he would have really liked Winchester then.
Yes. But that was kind of based on, that was based on a little bit of myth too, wasn't it?
Yeah, kind of historic / myth, but
Yeah. Let's see. We got it's Russian name. I can't pronounce it. Sorry. So it's probably thriller, detective, crime. Okay. Let's see. Mohammed Sabeh. Historical drama is my favorite movie. Schindler's List, Lincoln, Saving Private Ryan, Enemy at the Gates. These movies changed my life. Wow, that's interesting.
Oh wow.
I like historical dramas when they try to keep it historically accurate, because it's when they start going too far and changing a little bit too much, it makes it a little too much. Like, is it real? And what am I watching? How much is this? Just take the artists taking artistic liberty.
Rian.
Yes.
It's either Ryan or Rian, depending on how they pronounce it.
Right. He says thriller.
Ooh, someone after my own heart.
Mr. Professional, my favorite movie is The Fugitive from 1993.
Oh, that was an oldie but goodie, definitely.
Yes. I see. My favorite movie, I was supposed to be movie, I guess, movie is Back to the Future. Okay. That's, I think my sisters, I think anybody, it seems to be like anybody saw that movie when they were kids seems to like that a lot, I've noticed. So
actually, my daughter was watching it when we went to out of state, and she actually liked it. So, and she's like 13, so she wasn't even born when that came out. But she was really, they had all of them, like 1, 2, and 3. And she was stuck to the TV the whole time. She absolutely loved Back to the Future.
Oh, so hold on a second.
And my oldest sister had the biggest crush on Michael J. Fox. She had like this big, huge poster over her bed with him in it.
Let's see. We got Vivi V. Raiden saying hello. I just came in, not to be rude, but what is the stream about? We're going to talk about the movie Defending Your Life from 1992. So right now we're just going through the our question from last week, or from the last show, that is. So,
it's our recap.
And someone who has my name says live chat. So that's not me, by the way. So
that's not you.
That's not, so
you got yourself a fan.
Yes. Let me get back to get my magnifying glass back up here. There you go. So we got drama. Back to the Future. Okay, so we go drama. I can't pronounce the name. Sorry. Oh, is that? I don't know what language that is. Do you know what that is?
I think it's Arabic, but it looks like you put the translation dark pit.
Okay.
But I don't know because I don't read that. So
they
actually go from right to left, not left to right, like the English language.
Right. Excellent Gaming says animation. That's cool.
Oh yeah, my kids love anime stuff.
We saw animation. Well, the animation in general, I think. So anime would fall into the category of anime. But we reviewed on Olivia's show. We watched the movie Who Framed Roger Rabbit from the late 80s.
Okay.
So I think that would fall under that because it's live action and animation combined. So let's see. I'm not sure to pronounce the name. I'm not sure.
Walula.
Yes, I like GTA San Andreas with big faces there. Same one. I like GTA San Andreas. Fury says Fury. Renegade MS. I don't care for movies at all. Okay. So he's a regular contributor. Let's see what else.
He must like books.
Let's see. I see. Okay. Do you like trains? Oh, okay. I'm not sure.
Yeah, trains are cool.
Yes, he likes that. And he left a link for something. And I'm not going to click on that. It's another YouTube video. I'm not sure what it is. Light Yagami says romantic comedy. I don't you all support me but okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. That's not written very well. I don't you all will support me or not, but I love that.
Okay. Well, what was the percentage that loved romantic comedy? I mean, it was kind of high, wasn't it?
4%. Let me get back up. Okay.
Like 4%. So yeah.
5%.
Oh, yeah. 5%. So I guess it's a lower one. But I love romantic comedy too.
Yeah. Okay. We get back down here. Light. Oh, yeah, we got them already. Just Life says fantasy. Do you ever see the movie? what was that called? Never Ending Story. I guess I'd fall into the category of fantasy.
Hmm.
The my cousin starred. He played the main character in the second movie that came out, Never Ending Story 2. So
Oh, Ontario. Or yeah, Ontario? That was the second character. Or was it the
he played the main in the second movie. He played the main character. Whoever the main character. I forget the main character was.
I
But
believe it was
John,
Ontario. Well, that was his,
yeah,
never ending story name, but I don't know.
yeah. Nico, the Gmod Kid says, "Does anime count?" Yes, it does.
Yes, it does.
We got replies on that. Let's see real quick. Oops, I didn't mean to give it a heart there.
All my kids all loved anime. So
It says, oh my, no, Twilave says, no man, no. Actually, I don't know.
no, man, no.
And then Ebert 11 says, weeb. Okay.
Is that a ooh or e? I don't know. That kind of looked like a ooh weeb. Maybe he's not into any movies.
It says, hey, I'm not sure.
It's an anime movie.
And then finally, we got one that says hello. And finally, last answer
Hello.
says Kurt Raick. I almost like all of that comedy. Okay, I almost
everything that has comedy in it he likes.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, thank you. So, okay, cool. So, anything you'd like to add to that? I guess action adventure is probably pretty popular. It kind of feels about right on average, I guess. It's awfully high though.
Action adventure is very high, but yeah, my preference it's like paranormal, mystery, puzzle solving shows, and then I love romantic comedies.
Okay, hold on a second. Let me get rid of my magnifying glass. Hold on a second. Okay, there we go. So, I was thinking like, I guess with the comic book movies, that would fall under kind of like science fiction. Did we discuss that? So, I would think that more people would put that in there because that seems to be pretty popular right now. I don't watch the comic book movies myself, but that seems to be like a lot of people seem to talk about those. What do you think about that?
Probably should have maybe had a different category, maybe fantasy, but I guess it would fall under science fiction.
It's kind of like, yeah, it's like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but there's like a cross between like science fiction, fantasy, and comic books seem to like all kind of slightly mix a little bit, like a little bit, but not fully. They all have their own separate things. So
I mean, I think like probably fantasy is kind of like a subcategory of science fiction, versus fiction, which is real life. Science fiction is non-real,
I mean, nonfiction is real life.
Yeah, I got it backwards. So.
Cool. Alrighty. So I'll go. Let's see. So we had a question. What was the question you wanted to ask? We were talking about this before we went live. What you wanted to ask our viewers for this week?
So the movie that we are talking about today, it has a very interesting underlying topic. So basically, what they think is that people who have more fear are less involved or less intelligent than people who have less fear. So basically, the show kind of depicts that the less fear you have, the more intelligent you are, and the more a larger percentage of your brain you're using. And I just kind of wanted to get everybody's opinion on that. I mean, do you think like people who have lots of high fears is less intelligent? Or do you think having lower feels is a sign of evolution like the show depicts?
Okay. So let's see. How would we phrase? Because that's kind of a long. We kind of try to make it kind of short.
So, if you have a lot of fears, are you evolved or de-evolved?
Okay.
You put you twice.
Oh, thank you. If you have a lot of, should it be fear or fears?
Fears, because in the show, it's like the more fears you had, the less evolved and the less percentage of your brain you used, according to the show's byline.
Okay. So if you have a lot of fears, are you
evolved or de-evolved? Which evolution means, you're evolving, and de-evolved means you're regressing.
Evolved. Or is it more evolved or de-evolved? Is that a word?
Yeah, I think it's like de-evolved.
Okay. De. Oh, sorry, hold on a second. Okay. Sorry, I just can't see it. Oh, there it is. Okay, here we go. That's okay. Alrighty. And then we could add like maybe If you have a lot of fears, are you more evolved, or I should probably put more de-evolved in there too, I guess. Like that. So if you have more fears, are you more evolved or more de-evolved? How's that look?
Hmm.
Or
Whatever you think's best.
okay. I mean, if you want to change it, that's fine. Let me know. It's we can. It's.
Are you more evolved or more de-evolved? Yeah, I think that's good. It kind of balances it out a little bit.
Okay. And then can we say, we could say something like leave leave a comment explaining your response.
That works.
Comment explaining. Yeah, that way we get more people to. Oops. Amount. Explaining. Your response. Okay. So I guess basically more evolved would be the first one. There we go. More de-evolved for the second one. Anything else you'd like to add to that?
Maybe we can put another category. Do you feel like the more fears you have, the less your brain's developed?
Oh, okay. What we want to add another question altogether then.
I think that will cover it. I think that's fine.
Okay. Well, we could add that too. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Oh, yeah, we could add that too. I see what you're saying. I see. So we could put it like down here is what you're saying, like right here. Yeah, we could do that.
Or we could just put, what is your opinion?
Okay. Okay. Is your opinion? Oops. There we go. All right. Any other responses? Like maybe I don't care. Would that be good? Like that? I can take that back off if you want. We can take that out.
Maybe you could put like fears does not have a factor in the development of the brain and what percentage you use of your brain. Or fear doesn't have a factor in the percentage you use of your brain.
Fear doesn't have a factor
in brain development.
In brain, oh, that's good.
Well, maybe we should put brain evolution.
Brain evolution.
Yeah, I think brain evolution would be better.
Evolution. There we go. Okay. Is that good?
Mm-hmm.
Anything else?
Not that I can think of.
Okay. Let me proofread this, because once we do this, the YouTube does not allow us to.
Etched in stone.
If you have a lot of fears or are, oh, okay, yeah, there's a word, I left a word out. Are you? There we go.
More evolved or more de-evolved?
There we go. So if you have a lot of fears, are you more evolved or more? Okay. What is your opinion? Leave a comment explaining your response. More evolved, more de-evolved. Fear does not have a factor in brain. Okay, that looks good. Okay, does that look good?
It looks good to me.
Okay, there we go. Cool. All right, we'll come back to that one. Let me move this out of the way. There we go. Okay, so the movie is Defending Your Life. This was 1992. Wow, 30 years ago. So
wow.
I saw this movie in the theater, I think, when it was brand new. So this is I think I'm pretty sure I saw this one with a family member of some sort. I'm not sure. So, but starring Albert Brooks, Meryl Streep, and Rip Torn. 3 stars. Those are the 3 main stars that you could say in this one. Now, Albert Brooks over time has basically become less of a star. Not so much. He's not as well known as I would say when this movie came out. This was more like what you would call his heyday, where there was a lot of movies that are coming out. As far as the people in this movie, would you? Meryl Streep obviously is very well known, and Rip Torn is pretty well known. So, would you agree that Albert Brooks is just not as well known anymore? Or how would you?
Yeah, he just he stopped making movies after a while. So
I think he still makes them, but just not very, very, very much. I think
he doesn't make them very often. Like for a while there, he was making movies like like several movies a year. And then like he took like a total break for a little bit and then he came back and now he does them here and there, but not really.
Right. There's a movie
Maybe
came
he
out.
just lost, I don't know. Maybe he lost his passion for making movies, but I'm a big Meryl Streep fan. Oh my gosh, I love her. She's
Oh,
so awesome.
oh, I like Meryl Streep's acting, but I gotta say, you might not like when I say this. I think in real life she's not exactly the best person in real life. So she, I don't know if it's you. She was saying she said some positive things about Roman Polanski. I don't know if you know who that is. Roman Polanski. He's a guy who was convicted of getting a young girl drunk and then sexually abusing her. And
I didn't see that. No, but she is very opinionated. She doesn't, she'll give her opinion. And
I know
you either like her or you don't.
she
That's
gave her
her
opinion that
personality.
she actually said she liked Roman Polanski and she supported what he did. That's why I have a hard time liking her. So it's
And he got a girl drunk.
he got a girl drunk. He was convicted of it. The girl was either between 13 and 16 years of age, and he put drugs in her drink and he sexually. I'm not going to get into what he did to her, but he was convicted of it, and then he fled the country and he's never come back. So, and there seems to be the idea that she was supporting what he did just kind of turned me off to her. So I just
Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to see the details on that because I didn't see that story or anything. So I would have to get more data on that one. I mean, you know.
Okay, I understand. Yeah, it's otherwise, yeah, it's I'm I'm not saying anything bad about her acting. It's just anyway. I hate to bring that up. It's just something I remember hearing once. I actually saw her say she supported him. There's a video on YouTube that showed that, and I was like, really? How can you do that? Anyway, so I don't want to dwell on that too much. That's not a good thing. So let's focus on the positive instead. So
Yeah, one thing I think is pretty remarkable is she's actually a recovering drug addict. So during some of her movies and stuff, she's actually addicted. Then she went to rehab and she recovered and came back.
oh, okay, all right. Well, the let's see, and then let's see, and then Rip Torn. Where recently, I can bring this up here so we can look at this as well. So Rip Torn.
He always has that look on his face throughout this whole show. I mean, I don't know. It's like,
yeah, and as far as I know, Rip Torn when this movie came out was not really well known. He was an actor; he had been in a lot of things, but this was kind of like at the point where he was starting to become more popular. So
yeah, this
and
was in the beginning of his
popularity, yes. And then you and I had mentioned before we did the show that he was in another show, and I was going to bring that up real quick. It was Larry Sanders Show, correct?
Yes.
Larry Sanders shows, and Gary Shandling played the part of Larry Sanders. So so that was one of the shows I think that really made him popular, and that came out shortly after, around the same time. Yeah, about the same time. So
yeah, right around the same time. So
yeah, and I think that's what really made him popular. I never watched the show. Did you?
I was a Gary Shandling fan. I did watch a Gary Shandling show.
Oh, okay. So was the show good? Was it a pretty good show?
It was a series, but yeah, it was very much adult comedy. I don't think kids would appreciate it or understand a lot of the contents that were in it. But I thought during the time when the Gary Shandling show came out, it was a very bold move for a sitcom because they did discuss adult topics and stuff that hadn't been discussed before. And, you know, I really feel like it was a coming out in the TV era of being more open about adult topics with the Gary Shandling show.
Gotcha. So you got Christian. I'm sorry, I don't want to butcher your name, so I'll just say your first name, Christian. I'm sorry, Kristen. It's Christy. I'm sorry. Saying hi,
Christian Arcadius Derlatka. Sorry, I tried. I hope I got it right.
I was saying hi. Don't forget to say hi to Sherry too. So. All right. So anyway, getting back to the movie. So the basic plot of the movie is, well, the theme of let me start with the theme. The theme of the movie is fear, overcoming fear. So as we asked our question before, is if you can conquer fear, does that basically mean that you can move on to another level of existence? Because the basic plot of the movie is Albert Brooks' character gets killed at the very beginning of the movie. He's in the afterlife. They don't exactly say what the afterlife is in this movie. So it's like but basically it's like an area where you're put on trial. Oh, he came back. Let me see what else he said real quick. Sorry. With him. Okay. Sorry. Don't know what that means. So, okay. So as as the movie goes along, he's put on trial and they say it's not a trial, but then they say it is a trial. So they're going to go back and forth with it, basically for his level of fear. And the basic idea is if you have too much fear, you're not allowed to move on to the next level of existence. You have to go back through life and be reincarnated and start all over again. So you recorrect your fear, which is kind of strange in a way because they tell him at the very end he's going to forget everything when he goes back, but yet if he forgets everything, how can he learn from it? So it's kind of a weird little thing there. The other thing I heard I also watched another video about this before we did our show. Somebody stated, what about people who have no fear, who do things that are diabolical, like say Adolf Hitler? He didn't show any fear. Should he be allowed to move on as well?
Well, they didn't really necessarily say as moving on. It was kind of, I guess, I don't know. It was basically they didn't do like a heaven or hell thing. Basically, they said they send the people who use like 3% of their brain or so to the earth, and then other people who are able to develop more of their brain on earth gets to move to other places in the universe. Right. So basically, they were basically saying like, people with more fear use less of their brain, which I thought was kind of funny because, it was back in, what was it, the 90s? And at that time, the scientists were saying, oh, well, humans only use 3% of their brain. It was a big thing that was on the news and stuff back then. Well, but now, as we've gotten, more better tools to measure things and stuff, they're actually saying, that people actually use most of the brain, but a lot of it's used for memory, like subconscious and conscious, long-term, short-term, and then of course the bodily functions, left or right side. But they say back then they were saying that.
Well, before you go too far, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I'm sorry, I don't want to interrupt you, but the idea that you only use like a small percentage of your brain is actually a myth. It was actually started. It was actually there were a lot of media outlets that did perpetuate that myth. So you're right, but scientists, there were people that worked with neurology, people that worked with they would come out and would actually say, no, that's not true, but people would still believe the myth. And there was a lot of media people that just perpetuated that myth. So
yeah, it was a very controversial topic back then.
And if you ask anybody who knows this, it's actually you actually use 100% of your brain. You just don't use it all at one time. So, but you do use 100% of your brain. There's no part of the brain that's not functioning or it's all there. So, but yeah, it does.
That hadn't came to light back then yet.
What's that? I'm sorry.
That had not came to light back then yet. We just didn't have all the tools we have now to measure it.
So as the movie progresses, we get to see Daniel. Daniel is the Albert Brooks character. He goes on trial. This is where he's sitting to go on trial. He gets to see different parts of his life. The trial goes on for 9 days, and or something like that. I can't remember the exact number of days, but I think he looks at 9 days of his life or something to that effect. So, and basically what he gets to see is the different moments of his life where he could have acted differently, and they're judging his response as to how he responded and how fear played a factor, and should he move on to the next level as the movie progresses. Now, as the movie does progress, he eventually meets I'm sorry, what's her name again? Sorry. Meryl Streep. I'm sorry, forgot her name for a second. Meryl Streep. He eventually meets Meryl Streep. They fall in love extremely fast. In fact, so fast it's like they're deeply in love within 2 days, which doesn't really make any sense. But I came up with the idea as to how they could have made that make more sense, because they are going through the idea of going through multiple lives. They're reincarnated over and over and over again. They could have wrote it into the script that maybe they fell in love so quickly because maybe in another life they had known each other before, and maybe that by meeting themselves in the afterlife, whatever this is, that now they're being reunited, and that's why the love was so quick. That would have made more sense. That maybe they were just destined to be together all along. They weren't together during this past life, but they died at the same time, and therefore they had been together before, and they were always destined to be together, and that's why this love was so fast. It would have made a lot more sense, in my opinion. So
yeah, I'm wondering if maybe that's what they were going to lead up to, but then they had to cut the movie out because it was too long. So maybe that's why it let up, because it was very fast, but it was like instantly she thought she knew him. They felt very comfortable with each other. But
Right.
I mean, it happens. Some people are like that. I mean, I met people who I didn't meet them for the first day, but I felt like I've known them all my life. I don't know if we shared past lives or what, but there are just, kindred spirits that you tend to connect with very quickly. I've met a few in my lifetime. So, I mean, I think it's possible, but I think like they might have deleted some of the scenes regarding that, because it did seem like that's what it was going to lead up to, is that they knew each other from a prior life.
Yeah, it would have made more sense, though, obviously, because in real life, if two people meet and they fall in love that quickly, there's a very good chance that down the line they might like each other and just decide to get divorced or whatever anyway. So it happens, So
Yeah. Well, one thing I noticed though, which I thought was very interesting, because, the GLB movement was very young
the
during the
G,
90s.
the GLB, what's that? I'm sorry.
Gay, lesbians,
Oh,
bisexual.
okay,
Um,
gotcha.
but I thought not only was this movie pretty bold, because number one, it stressed the 3% of the brain, which, as you mentioned earlier, was a very controversial topic back then. But also back then, that was, in the very beginning when, the GLB started finding their equality. That was, part of their journey. But this movie made another very bold step along with that, because if you notice the old guy, there was that old man, like 90-ish gray hair. He was looking at his past life, and he has a little girl playing with dolls. But then there was that old lady, the one that screamed, and in her past life, she was a sumo wrestler. And then it showed Meryl Streep, which in her past life, she was this big, huge warrior, on a big horse. But then of course it showed the other one, and he was a native running from a tiger, So I thought that was two very bold things that this movie did that was very controversial topics back in the 90s. It's not now. We're a lot more open-minded about that stuff now. But it's movies like this that helped us evolve as humans, become more open-minded.
Okay. Just to clarify for those who don't know what we're talking about, what happened was our main characters in the story went to what's called the Past Lives Pavilion, and that allows you to actually see lives that you had in your past. So that's what all those characters that Sherry was talking about was were all the different people that they had lived in previous lifetimes.
Yeah,
so,
this was a lady that was a sumo wrestler. That was the little girl. The old man, he was the little girl in his past life. But I thought this is another very bold movement for this movie. Not only were they talking about the controversial topic about the 3% humans only using 3% of their brain. Of course, we got more knowledge now. We all know we use a lot more. But there are also, I thought it was very interesting how a lot of the gender wars were not, were brought up here. Like, the old lady, her past life, she's a sumo wrestler. The old man, his past life, he was a little girl playing with dolls.
Right.
And then Meryl Streep, in one of her past lives, she was a warrior. So, yeah. And then there he is running from a tiger in one of his past lives. So
he was dinner. So that's
he was dinner for a tiger. So I thought that was very interesting about the show, just because I lived back in that time and I knew how controversial these subjects were during that time. And so I thought that there were a lot of really bold moves with this show.
And I wanted to add that the woman who introduces the Past Lives Pavilion is Shirley MacLaine. So she's known for her beliefs in reincarnation. So basically this is a cameo because she's actually listed in the credits as being herself. So so she's not dead. She's actually partaking in the afterlife while she's still alive, I guess. So
yeah.
So
and also back then, that was very heightened in the Christian movements who don't believe in past lives too. So I mean, there was a lot of very strong topics that were depicted in this movie for the time when it was developed that I thought was very brave on the producers' side.
We got before I go too far, OD back again. Thanks, OD. Good evening, Zuma. Don't forget to say hi to Sherry as well. So as we let's see the two of them, Yeah, this is yeah, basically this is you could kind of call this movie a romance comedy, kind of, but I mean it's more of a comedy than the romance is kind of like left over. It's kind of like there, but it's not really the main focus of the movie. So,
Mhm.
but it definitely, I would definitely say it does fall into that category. Just there are other movies that do a little bit more stronger in that respect. And as far as Meryl Streep said, I can't remember, I heard this, so I can't quote my source on this, but Meryl Streep said that she actually felt her character was really wasted in this because she really doesn't do very much. She's more or less just there for Albert Brooks' character to have a love interest. She really doesn't do much other anything else. She does she's more, her character is definitely gotten over fear for sure, which if you look at her past lives, you wonder how, if she had gotten over fear so easily, how come she was back during this life? Because she was she should have been moved on long ago based on how competent she seems to have been, or how less fearful she had become. So it's kind of funny that she was actually still going back and this far, because they showed her as she said she was in her past life she was a whaler, she was a Sir Lancelot or whatever that was on the horse, and all the other characters. You think that she would have moved on much longer ago. So this is the romance. It's Rip Torn's character. He plays Albert Brooks' attorney. So let's see. And by the way, since I'm here, this right here is this is a cameo. This part of the movie is kind of interesting. Um, I'm not sure why this character. This is Buck Henry. Buck Henry is a comedy writer. He wrote one of the shows I know he rewrote was a TV show from the '60s called Max Get Smart with I forget. Oh, it was a comedy show. I can't remember. Oh, I can't remember who was in that one, but I can't remember. I know who was in it. I just can't remember their names off the top of my head. But basically, I'm not sure why he was put into this, other than the fact that they just wanted him to be there, because he doesn't really add anything to the movie, and a lot of people probably don't know who Buck Henry is. I knew who he was based on his name. I didn't know what he looked like. So when I saw this, I knew he had some sort of significance, but I had to look it up just to figure out who he was. So I'm not sure why he's in the movie. If he was more recognizable, it would have been more funny to have him in there. But it just seems like he's kind of, because you don't know. I didn't know who he was. I assume a lot of people probably don't know as well. So it seems he's kind of wasted, but he's kind of a funny add-on to the movie itself. So.
Yeah, he was actually semi-popular back then, so it was a very small role for him. So I'm wondering if they just, brought him on for a few minutes to help endorse it, because he was very popular back then when that movie was created.
Mm-hmm. So, and OD came back and said, "Good evening, Sherry." Let's see. So I had not seen an episode with you before. I'm kind of new here. So, okay.
Hello, it's only my second time, so I'm new too.
So anyway, so Rip Torn is his attorney. There he is. He's basically attorney defending him. It's funny because when he first meets Rip Torn in his office, he says, "Am I on trial?" He says, "I don't like to think of it as a trial," but then he says, "Yes, it is. It is a trial." So,
Classic car salesman. He was such a smooth talker in this show. I mean, his character was very smooth.
Yes, he was very much, and he's very likable. I like his character a lot in this one. So, now there's a little bit of trivia. I looked this up here. There's a joke that when this comedian's up on stage, this comedian is really bad. He's doing really lame jokes. Then Albert Brooks' character comes on. He says to Meryl Streep, he says, "Oh, that's my father." And it's like they just, "Oh, I'm just joking. It's not really him." In real life, this is kind of interesting. I don't know if this was done intentionally or not. Albert Brooks' real father died on stage, literally died on stage when he was performing as a comedian, I think back in the 1950s. So I don't know if there's a tribute. Maybe this might be a small tribute to his dad being on stage when he died or something. But
maybe I didn't know his father had died on stage. So maybe it was a tribute. That's very interesting.
So yeah, if it is, it's a very inside thing. So they didn't really try to make a big deal out of it. But the father, of course, the guy that's up on stage though is kind of very unfunny, and that makes them leaves, and that's how they get to know each other, walk around, and that line that you said, "I know you." Yeah, it's like, yeah, this is right. When they first meet, like as you pointed out, yeah, I know you. Like I know you, and he says, I don't. He doesn't say he knows her though. She says she knows him, but not the other way around. I don't remember him saying that. So.
Maybe she was the tiger that ate him in the past life.
So, and as it goes along, we get to see all the different aspects of fear. I will say the one thing I don't understand how this has to do with fear is this scene right here. This is one of the scenes that he in the scene basically they're criticizing his decision to invest money, and he didn't invest it into the what was the watch company? I'm sorry, it's a Japanese watch company. I can't remember.
Yeah.
I know it's a real one. I can't remember what it's called. I'm sorry. But they criticized him for not investing his money into that company, which would have made him like millions of dollars or something.
Yeah, and so he invested into something else. But I mean, I don't know why they would criticize him for that. It's not like he could predict the future.
Yeah, and I've seen this movie a couple of times, so it's like every time this scene comes up, I don't understand how this has anything to do with fear at all. It's just a decision he made. It was a bad one, but it wasn't based on fear. In fact, if you watch it very carefully, he's actually very confident that his decision was the right one. So he didn't have any fear. He didn't show fear at all. It was the exact opposite. He was highly confident that his decision was right. He just made a wrong decision. That's not based on fear. So if he had said he was afraid of something, I could understand, but he didn't say he was afraid. He was very confident. I don't know. It just didn't seem to fit right with maybe they're trying to get something across and maybe they should have written it a little bit better, in my opinion. So
yeah, I don't know. But basically it was showing different times where he had fear, he didn't stand up for himself. But then a lot of that times when it come off, he would give a different opinion to kind of, like give a different statement on why he did this and why he did that. And I thought that was pretty bold of him. I mean, he was defending himself.
Uh-huh. So, and OD came back hazy when I'm afraid I couldn't understand the video title. Is it the name of the movie or the video right now? The name of the show that we're doing is called The Working Title Experience, episode number 34. And then at the very end of the video, it says Defending Your Life. So the movie title is at the end of the video title. So
the movie that we're talking about right now is called Defending Your Life. And it was 1993, correct?
92.
Oh, 1992 movie.
Yes. So yeah, and so that he was wondering why the video title of the actual video that we're on right now is kind of confusing to him. That's what he was. So
he has two different titles. I can understand why that can be a little bit confusing.
Yeah. So all right. So getting back to this. So yeah, he goes through different. Oh, this one was interesting. This one is definitely a major factor of fear. This one I can understand. So this is his wife at the time who was married to. He regretted marrying. Yeah, and he's having her pretend that she's the boss or the person that's offering them the job, and he's saying, "I'm not going to take anything less than $65,000," and he's basically having her say, "I can't give you that much." Basically, he's practicing with her, and she keeps on saying, "I can't go lower than that. I can't go lower than that." And finally, when it gets to the next day, the guy offers him far less than 65,000, like $20,000 less, $20,000 less,
like 40,000.
Yeah, and he just accepts it immediately. So
I thought that was actually pretty interesting, because he is very confident and aggressive with his wife, but then he was very timid and intimidated by the boss. And I think that's part of the movie, just saying like his fears were holding him back. If he wouldn't, if he would have shown less fear like he did with his wife, then he would have got the wage he wanted. But as soon as it came to head-to-head combat, he backed down and showed fear.
Right. And the other thing that was funny was I'll play it real quickly. You can see that the reaction to the guy is like, you could tell he actually was willing to pay him more.
Yeah, he's like, really? You're settling?
So yeah, it's like, so the fear factor was definitely definitely a motive. I can understand this part for sure. So then Daniel, his character, he comes back and says he assumes that they're criticizing him because he didn't take enough money, and at this point he is missing the meaning of what they're criticizing about, what he's on trial for. So now there was one over here. Where was it? Where he has to do public speaking. I wanted to show that one too. There's another aspect.
That was fun.
So this is another scene in his life where he has to go up on stage and speak publicly in front of a group of people, and he's terrified and fear is coming in. I've heard stories that people are so afraid of public speaking that they actually fear this more than death. So I don't know if that's true or not, but I've heard people say that there's some sort of truth to that. Could be a myth that's been started. Who knows? But I wouldn't be surprised if there are people definitely out there that would probably say that they would rather die than going up on public stage and speaking in front of a large group of people. So, but this is a definite example of how his fear kicks in. He doesn't say a single word, and at the last minute, someone comes in and says there's some sort of fire activity of some sort, and so they all have to leave, and so he never gets a chance to demonstrate his ability to speak publicly. So his fear is never conquered at that point. So very prime example of why he needs to conquer his fear. So
Yeah.
and as far as public speaking, I do know when the first time when I taught a class, I taught several classes when I was I started about 15 years ago. I taught for about 5 years. And I will say the very first day I came into my very first class I taught, I was very much like that. I was very scared, but I did speak. I was very nervous speaking in front of a class because I'd never done it before. And as time went on, I got used to it. So it became more easy. So I conquered that fear. But I will say, yeah, it was very intimidating to speak in front of a class of students, expecting them. They were expecting me to know everything. And I was like very nervous because, oh my goodness, am I going to make a mistake? And so I can relate to this scene. So anything you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, I don't know, because I used to do a lot of dance performances, and I was fine when I was dancing, but now, just for fun, I'll go out and do karaoke with my friends. And I also did karaoke in my younger life with my friends. And, I sing just fine, when I'm not up there. But when I get on that stage, I can't get that tune right. I play instruments, I play piano, I dance, I know rhythm, but I know still to this day, and it started at a very young age, like when it came up to singing in front of the crowd, like doing karaoke, I get very nervous. So.
Oh, okay. Okay.
But yet I could go and dance in front of like a huge audience and not even bother me, like I used to travel around the world, doing professional dance, competing with different colleges and stuff in dance.
Oh,
and so I was fine doing that. But for some reason, I don't know, when it comes to the singing and stuff, I don't know if I'm just thinking too much of it because, I play different instruments and stuff or what, but I get really nervous singing karaoke. Luckily, I got really good friends who are awesome at singing karaoke. So I always pull them along with me. Here, come on. If you're singing with me, I'll do better than if I'm up there by myself. So
I find it very interesting that you're very confident with your dancing, but you do get nervous with your karaoke singing. That's that's very interesting.
But I always try to bring my friends who are awesome singers, and that kind of helps me relax. But when I get up there by myself, it's like I just get so nervous.
Oh yeah, I couldn't do that. I wouldn't want to do that at all. I just don't want to. It might be a little bit of fear. I just don't feel like doing it. I just feel like this is like not me. But it's cool that you can do that because I just wouldn't want to be up there in the first place.
Yeah. Like I said, well, I go up there, but I don't do very good. Lucky, most people don't remember in the morning, so I'm good.
So as were you ever, now getting back to your dancing, were you ever afraid, like even at the beginning, like early on in your dancing career, did you ever have any fear early on? Was it always confidence, high confidence?
Yeah, no, I just, dancing's always been my passion, like since a very young age. I always loved dancing. So no, I never had a problem, dancing in front of people, and a lot of people in our class, because what we do, I don't know if they still do it now because it's been a while since, I traveled around the world competing, but like they make the team do it over and over. And if one person made a mistake, you would have to start from the very beginning of the routine and go forward. Then if everybody got it right, you'd have to do the routine backwards, so, and sometimes our dance practices would go like 3-5 hours, just trying to get everybody to get it all the way through right. And, people will be tired. Oh, I want to go home and stuff. But with me, it's never felt like work. I always had so much love and such a passion for dancing. It just never felt like work with me. I would dance for hours, even when I was a little girl, before I even started, taking lessons and whatnot. I would, we had this little house, and then I had like this little, closed in porch that was, I guess, would kind of be like a sunroom now. I would take the little, boom boxes that were portable back then, they'd run off of cords or, double, D batteries or C batteries. And so I take this portable radio or, my age is going to show, tape player up to the ceiling. And I would just sit there like on the weekends when we weren't in school and stuff. I just sit up there for hours just dancing. And I'd sit down on the roof of our house and just sit there and dance, and I mean, I'd do it for hours. It just never felt like work with me. It was just always something I loved from a very young age. So,
well, so you would probably move on and I would be left back because I show too much fear then. So,
no, I'd bring it with me.
I will give another example of the very first time I went. I used to, when I was a traffic reporter, and I used to fly in a plane. Very first time I ever did a traffic report from the airplane, I was very afraid. I didn't know how it was going to sound, and they threw it. Basically, I had to set a headphone with a little microphone on in front of my mouth, and they said, "Let's go to Rick in the airplane." And they say, the very first time I did it, I was like nervous, and the guy who was flying the plane, the pilot, we were in a Cessna 172, so it was a very small aircraft, fixed wing aircraft. And he, after I did it, he was listening to me in his headphones. He was listening as well to my broadcast, and he looked over at me and he smiled and said, "You did good, dude. You did good." He tried to make me feel really good afterwards. So it was it made me feel a little bit more confident as we did it more and more. But I was still, the very first time was definitely I was very nervous that time. So, and also the very first time I went live on the radio, doing traffic reports in studio rather than in the airplane, was also kind of nervous as well. So, but yeah, after a while you get used to it. It just, you get more confidence. So, but yeah, I definitely, unlike, I wish I had the confidence when you're dancing, because I definitely was showing a lot of nervousness for the first few times I went on. So, but.
Well, what matters is you've perfected it and you're not nervous now, and you do a very good job at it. So that's what's important. We all have to learn and grow at our own paces.
So. All right, so let's see. There was another scene on here I wanted to show. This really doesn't have anything to do with the movie because it's not really needed, but there's a scene in here. I'll get to it. Right here, where they just show a bunch of arbitrary incidents where he just makes poor decisions, and I thought these things were pretty funny. He makes a decision buying a bad car, I guess.
And that's the car salesman laughing at him, and then this is when he cuts the table in half.
Yes, so I gotta be careful with copyright. So I gotta pause this as we're doing this, so we don't get a copyright claim. So the what else is there? Falling off the roof.
Oh yeah.
So I thought this was a pretty funny part of the movie. I do remember my dad and I laughing pretty hard when we saw this one together. So.
Yeah, I remember many days where my brother and dad were getting up there adjusting that antenna on the roof, actually. So where I'm from, Idaho, is up in the mountains. So yeah, you always had to have a big antenna on your roof if you want to get any reception.
Actually, I have an antenna on my roof. It was for not for TV, but for actually getting police scanners, because I do the business. We have to listen to the police talking to things. My dad actually helped me put the antenna on my roof too. So
yeah, because you report on accidents and stuff.
Yes.
The traffic.
So there was another scene. Oh yeah, this was pretty funny too. But this doesn't really need it. This is just a funny scene, I guess. So he goes into the Is this Japanese? I'm sorry, I don't want to say.
Yes. So she is Japanese.
So he comes in and they're like, he's talking about to this other guy who says he has like 15 days or something. And they're like, oh my God, 15 days. Because he has 15.
Like the average was like 5 days, and he had 9. The other guy had like 15. So they're like, oh, 9, that's a lot of days. 15, that's a lot of days. So I guess the more days you had determined that you were going to have a longer trial to prove whether you were evolved enough to move on from Earth to a different universal state or stay on Earth. So
Right. And I mean, the scene isn't really needed, but it is funny though. It's just not,
yeah,
you could have cut this out completely and it wouldn't really hurt anything, but
yeah, it was hilarious. So it was definitely a comic release because it was, it was getting to a very serious point right before the comic.
mhm. So
It was hilarious. I love that scene. That was so funny.
So as the scene go, let's see, was there any other scenes in here? Was there anything else in here that you could remember that you wanted to talk on or emphasis?
Well, if you remember when they very first started the trial and they showed the schoolyard bully.
Oh, okay.
And they showed like, all the kids cheering them on, oh, get him, fight. I just think that again shows how different the times were back then. Like back then, if you didn't stand up for yourself on the playground, you were teased and harassed for the rest of your school days. Where now, the schools have made so many efforts, not all successful, but they've tried very hard to prevent like the schoolyard bullies. But back then it kind of showed the dawn of the times because back then, bullying was very common and getting in fights on the school ground was, the main event of recess. So I thought that was very interesting to see how different everybody's view was back then compared to what it is now.
So that's interesting. So I don't, I'm not, so I mean, obviously you have your kids. So as far as, is that what something you have to deal with your kids as far as bullying? I mean, is that what they've done in schools? I didn't even know that. So,
so growing up where I grew up in,
what I'm talking about is modern day, because I agree with you. When I was younger, there was a lot of bullying for sure. And they didn't do anything about it. At least the schools I went to, it was very, very hardly ever talked about at all. It was just,
and now they do a lot more about it than what they did back then. And yes, my kids have been bullied. In fact, when my son was in kindergarten, I ended up having to go to the dean and the board and everything because this poor little 5-year-old kid had they called it the I Hate Paul gang, had like 7 kids that were 5th graders, like picking on him. When he came back and they had twisted his arm and hurt his shoulder and stuff. And he actually didn't tell me about it. To be honest, I guess he just didn't want me to worry as his mom. But then when my oldest son had came back from boot camp, he actually told my oldest son, I guess because he felt more protected because his oldest brother was there. And that's when I heard about it. So then I went to the school and I got all the names of the kids. I went to all the parents and I made it very clear that it was not going to be acceptable and I would press charges to the full extent. And I did explain to all the parents, I go, your kids are not of age. You will be responsible for their behavior,
Mm-hmm.
And so yes, they did have that. But then, I got him in some karate and some self-defense and stuff. He stuck up for himself around the 3rd grade. Then after that, he wasn't bullied.
Oh, okay. Yes. Yeah, I will say that, both myself and my sister suffered from bullying when I was in school. So,
my 2 younger kids, being half Chinese, it's definitely been, it was a real issue till about the 3rd grade when, he had gotten, advanced enough in karate and learned his self-defense and stuff. So he started defending himself. But yeah, they definitely did have some of that. And then my daughter did too. And we did have to address some of that. It wasn't as bad as my son, but
yeah, it's so. But as far as the I didn't realize. Oh, that's I guess it's a good thing. I mean, in a way. I mean, because based on the movie, excuse me, the movie would basically say maybe it's not a good idea for the students the school to fully intervene because maybe it teaches the kid to stand up to his fear, so to speak.
Yeah, no, I really think it's a very positive change that the schools take more precautions now and prevent that.
Okay.
I think that's a very good thing. So
the only thing I don't like about the modern schools is they have school resource officers on campus, on the school campuses, and that's I don't like the idea that police officers are there and they can I've read stories about people students being arrested for doing things on school grounds. I'm not exactly sure that's a good thing. It's a little too strong on the enforcement. I think it should just be, it should be dealt with at the school level, not having police on campus. That's just a little too strong for me. Because
well, some of the stories my son told me when he was in junior high, my youngest son, I'm really glad actually they have it, because there is a lot of stuff going on that needed to be addressed.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, this okay. I guess it depends on the school then, because the schools I went to, there was some bullying, but there was, I wouldn't say it was so bad that it was being that the cops needed to be involved or anything like that. So we did not have school resource officers obviously when I was a kid in school. So
No, we actually did have the resource officer. I had him in high school.
Oh, did you? Oh, okay, I did not. Okay, that's interesting. Okay, why? I'm not trying to say that. That's really interesting. Where I lived, it was actually there was a very low crime rate. I'm not sure what your crime rate was where you lived, but the where I lived, it was the crime rate was very very low. So maybe that's why they didn't have one. Maybe I don't know. I don't know what your background, but I do know with the school I went to, there were about 3,400 students altogether. So and it was I don't remember any security guards at all, to be honest. So it was at 6th grade 7 through 12. So it was a junior high school and a high school combined.
Mhm.
So that's interesting. So but getting back to the movie about fear, I guess if they had school resource officers or anyone to help stifle this kind of bullying, I guess Daniel wouldn't have a way to actually face his fear. I guess how would they deal with it at that point? What do you think?
So with him being bullied on the school ground and stuff, and all the kids, like saying fight, 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 and no teachers intervening, that wouldn't happen now. The teachers are very, they're trained to intervene. They're trained to take care of it. And I think it's actually a very good thing. So,
Okay.
I mean, I personally, me growing up, I didn't have a lot of problems in school because everybody was afraid of my older brothers.
Oh,
So I never had a problem with that. And so it was actually something kind of new for me to deal with when I had my kids, and they were, having it. And there was various, like my 2 older kids, they had some reverse racism against them. My 2 younger kids, being half Asian and half Caucasian, they've had some issues. But yeah, there's definitely some very serious issues out there. For people, anybody who's raising kids now or trying to raise kids in this world, it's just a very different environment than as we grew up,
Gotcha.
But in some cases, I think it's evolved in some ways. In other cases, I think it hasn't. But definitely, I feel like, there's a lot less, schoolyard fights and stuff because the teachers are better trained on how to de-escalate and that kind of stuff. And I think that is definitely a good thing.
Okay. Well, before we go too far, I got Hugo saying hi, Zimund. Hello. And then Trung's back. Hello, Trung. How are you doing this evening? So, all right. Okay. So anything else you'd like to add about this scene? As far as
No, that was just it. It was just a different period back then. Like then they were saying he was weak because he didn't stand up to the bully. But these day and age, we're like, no bullying allowed. We just don't do that, even though it's still an issue that needs to be addressed because we're still evolving as humans. So
there's another problem with this scene that's not addressed, and because I suffered from bullying when I was a kid, so the idea of standing up to a bully is not always a good thing, because if you stand up to a bully, the problem is the bully can come down even harder at that point and be hard, even more harsh on you if you stand up to them. So unless you're ready to defend it, you're ready to actually go out and have an all-out fight with them, you're backing down from a bully is actually probably a better thing than actually standing up to them in some ways.
So I don't necessarily agree with that. I think like a bully, like if they're picking on you and stuff and you go tell the teacher or whatnot, they're saying, oh, you're a wimp or stuff. But as soon as you stand up to that bully, the first thing they do is they run to an adult and tell on you to get you in trouble.
Oh, well, okay. Well, it depends on, okay, that could happen too. But in the school situations I have, the bullies, I would not be running. They wouldn't do that. I know some of them would not, some of them might, but certain ones would not. They would not go running and do that. So there could be situations like, you're right, that might happen, but in other situations it would not happen. So
in my experience, whenever I seen bullies, like they're the first to tattle on you and then they intimidate you so you don't tattle on them, so they could get away with being bullies. But of course, like I said, I didn't have a lot of that problem growing up as much because of my older brothers, so I might just have a different view because I just haven't had a lot of experience personally in that. I've had experience with my kids and protecting them at school from bullies and having to go, to the school and the board and everything. Cause I mean, I become very mama bear over my kids. So I take it right to the top if I find out anything's going on. So
okay. Well, I agree.
might just have a different view than you on that.
Yeah, I agree that what you're saying, could have happened for me as well. But I do believe that in my scenarios, some of the people are just really just outright, almost like criminal in their attitude towards bullying students, including myself. I don't think they would be the ones that would run to the teacher in that case. So I agree. It would be different for each situation, I think. So sometimes I agree. Your situation right and mine is probably right. Yeah, it depends on each situation. So
yeah, I think it's just based on the individual and the different individuals' experiences, because everybody's born a baby or a child, but then the experiences they have in life develop.
And the other problem is, and my parents started me a year early. So I was actually the youngest one in my class, always the youngest one in my class, because I was always the smallest one in my class. So that didn't help very much. When I got to high school, I graduated, I was 17 years old because they started me a year early. So because that in the early years, I was very, very small compared to the rest of the students. So if they'd waited like an extra year, probably would have been better. I could have been, the average age that as the students are, I would have been taller. And so I probably would have been picked on as much. So, but I'm just throwing that in there because when you're the smallest one, that's easy for bullies to come down and pick on you a lot easier. So, but
yeah, well, that's who they target. They target the smaller ones, because they feel like they could dominate over them. So,
right. So, and then
just remember, dynamite comes in small packages.
So any other scenes you'd like to? We did have the scene with the paint where it was kind of small. He eventually they make it out that he's protecting his friend by giving him the paint. Turns out no, he's the paint. Later on, he does protect him, but later on, he actually squeals on his friend. His friend gets expelled from school because of the whole incident. So it all backfires on the whole plan in the first place. So it seems like he's actually protecting his friend, but in fact, his friend gets expelled for the whole incident. So.
Yeah, during the school time, he did protect his friend, but then his dad was yelling at him and being very aggressive to him. So then, yes, he did back out and tell the truth about his friend to get his dad, to stop his dad from yelling at him. And so again, he was so fearful of his dad, his gallantry protecting his friend kind of went, by the wayside.
Right. Okay. So let's kind of jump to the end. So the very end of the movie, we find out he's really in love, and so love seems to be the deciding factor as to what makes him overcome his fear factor. It's decided that he's going to go back, but he's still in love with her. He's going to miss her. As they get onto these trams, as they call them, she sees him and she starts calling out to him. And someone else pointed out the fact on another video, they were reviewing this. I can't remember who said this exactly, but as the trams are moving down, you see that there's multiple lanes. It really doesn't serve any purpose to have multiple lanes. It's most likely the writers decide to put multiple lanes in there so that he would have like a false dilemma of trying to get across these tracks. They only need two lanes. They don't need 8 lanes. So they only need 1 lane for going back and 1 lane going forward. So the idea of having multiple lanes is probably just an idea that the writers had. So he had to kind of work his way between the trams, so he looked like he was going to get hit or something. So it's kind of silly to have that many trams in there. But basically, at this point, he finally conquers his fear. Love is the deciding factor. He gets into the train. They decide they're actually still watching. He's actually still on trial. He doesn't know this, but he's actually still on trial, even though the trial they said was over. They all decide that he's moved on. And that's the end of the movie, and then they go on and live happily ever after. I think they ended it just at the right spot.
And that was like after, I think they said at the beginning of the movie he had done 20 lives on Earth. So, because remember when he first went there, that guy was like, "Oh yeah, you've been to the Earth a lot."
And I thought they didn't need to show them any more of the movie. That where this ended was just perfect. So
I did. I think that was a great ending. So
now, the only thing I said I think that is a little weak is the love story, because they fall in love too fast. And like you and I already said that maybe if they had established, and you said that maybe there's some deleted scenes, I think the love story is just way too fast. Even for a movie, it's way too fast. So obviously times in movies they'll fall in love. The movie The Cutting Edge, did we watched The Cutting Edge, correct? Did we?
Yeah, that it took quite a while. They didn't realize, well, they were falling in love, but they didn't realize in The Cutting Edge, they didn't realize they loved each other till the end of the show. In this show, they realized they loved each other at the very beginning. But
Yeah.
again, their own fears were holding them back from exploring that love for each other.
Right. But the difference between the movie The Cutting Edge was that took place over a period of 2 years. So whereas this one takes place over the period of like 2 days.
9 days. 9 days. That was his time there. 9 days.
Oh,
So.
yeah, right. Yeah. So yeah, but still
And
very.
I thought she said her time was 5 days, but she was there like the whole time he was there. So I was kind of curious about that because I thought she had originally said she was there for 5 days and he was there for 9 days, but they both left at the same time.
I think the trials, if I'm not mistaken, the trials were actually the same. It was just the number of days that they covered for their life. That I think that's what you mean, right? So actually the actual trial was the length regardless of how many days that they were covering for their life. I think so. That's why she was probably there the same length of time as he was. I think. I'm guessing. So, but so the end of the movie, and the other thing I think was a small problem was the idea that if you have someone who's a diabolical person, like I brought up the case of Adolf Hitler, he doesn't show any fear. He moves on to what? So they don't discuss the evil factor at all. So they kind of leave that out. So if someone's evil, they could continue moving on to other levels of existence. So it's not a factor of evil. So if someone kills someone multiple times as a serial killer and shows no fear in killing those people, he can move on to the next life. So it seems like it has some sort of moral dilemma there that they just kind of overlooked, probably on purpose. They probably didn't want people to think too much when they watched the movie. So if you're watching the movie, just probably a good idea just not to think about that kind of stuff. Just watch the movie for what it is. Don't worry about that. So does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I don't think they were even trying to touch the base of that of like a evil person being evolved because they don't show fear. Because I mean, I don't know. I think that's just a whole different situation. But I do understand what you're saying is like, okay, well, these people who kill other people, they don't show fear, but they kill other people. Well, it depends. It depends on the story. Some of them kill because they're afraid. Some kill because they're afraid of being alone. Some kill, because they're afraid of their lies getting out. And so again, I just don't think that was like a byline of the show. I do think it's a very interesting view on your point. Like, okay, well, if they don't show fear and they're a serial killer, does that mean they're evolved? Well, obviously not, but I just, I that is a very out of the box point of view, though. I see what you're saying.
Yeah, and the writers purposely left that out. They purposely didn't want people to think about that at all. So when they wrote this, so it's supposed to be just a fun movie, and you're not supposed to think about that stuff. A fun, slight romantic comedy, slight, and it make you think about fear itself. That's the theme. So they don't want you to think about that kind of dwell on it too much, because I think that point the movie would start to get too dark. It'd probably get much darker.
Yeah, it was a romantic comedy. It wasn't. That would be a good, interesting factor, though, if it was like a horror or paranormal type thing, though.
Yeah, or maybe they could have another movie that's kind of similar to this, where the people die and they would talk about fear, plus they would also talk about murder and stuff like that. There'd be more
a darker side of fighting for your life.
As far as was there anything else in the movie that really stood out for you?
Not that I think about this time.
Okay. The movie is very fun. It has a lot of a lot of these little scenes that aren't really needed, that are out there just for fun, which actually help the movie flow. So it's not bad. So it diverts attention away from the main part of the movie, but then and sometimes it adds to it as well, like the whole scene with the restaurant. This at first it seems like it doesn't really have anything to do with the movie, but then you realize he's afraid to show because he sees his prosecutor. He's afraid for her name was Julian, for Julian to say start waving at her, and you realize that he's still showing fear and she's not. So the scene does become very relevant. At first it doesn't seem like it is, but then it becomes very relevant because you see that she's showing no fear. She's just having fun, and he's like, "Oh my goodness, don't do that! You're going to ruin everything." So,
yeah.
And then of course there's the scene here where she wants to take him upstairs, and he says no because he admits he was afraid. So.
And then he tries to call her and leave her a message, but I guess she didn't get the message.
Yeah, that part they kind of that was kind of interesting because they never really established what happened with that message. I guess it was kind of odd. I mean, it would have been interesting if they left if she had said, "Yeah, I got the message" or something, but she never established that would have been because it was never you never found out what happened with that. So
Yeah, I really love like all the jokes he was saying throughout the show. He'd always come up with the funniest sayings and the funniest puns.
hmm hmm
And it really just kept it as a lighthearted show, and that was really fun.
hmm And I will say, oh, and looking at the time when this movie came out, I mean, you worked on computers. One of the things I noticed was when they were in there is the office that Rip Torn is in. You see all the computer terminals people are sitting at. I used to work at a court reporting office, and I used to work at a computer like that. So it's funny to see old computers that you don't see anymore. So,
I remember building those computers when I was like 16.
yeah.
But yeah, I really kind of got a kick out of the technology too, compared to where we are now. Like they have landlines, like hardly anybody has a landline anymore, and then we have all these little flat screen TVs that we hang up on the wall. And in that show, they have the big, huge tube TVs that, the bigger the better back in the 90s. You'd have these huge like tube TVs that would take up half your living room,
Yeah.
and everybody loved it because they were just, so big. And now we have the same length of TV that takes up a fraction of the space. But yeah, I did notice that like everything was so big, the phones, the computers, the TV, tube TVs. We don't even have tube TVs anymore, Well, I mean, we do, but it's like they're just not as common. But back then, everybody had those. So I did notice that too, the difference in the technology compared to today.
And the other thing is kind of funny if they made a movie today that took place in 1992, they'd get all the technology wrong. They put all the technology from today in there, and if this movie, because it was made back in 1992, you actually get to see what it looked like, which is really
cool. You're gonna see like, oh, here's some of our ancient technology we had. We're back in the 90s.
So
the caveman days of humans when we watched tube TVs and had phones that were as big as our head.
And I actually in my house I actually have a tube TV which sits in the corner, which I don't turn on anymore. So so it's just sitting there not doing anything, of course, but most everything else is on a big flat screen. So
in 2017 when I moved, I got rid of about like 5 tube TVs, and they were the huge ones, like we're talking the 32 inches, that were really big back then. But yeah, I got rid of a lot of those.
And the other thing I comment once in a while in the early 90s, very late 80s and part of the early 90s, I was still going. I had not gone back to college yet, so I was still I was working in different automobile shops, working on cars. So I do remember working on a BMW like this at one point in my life. So it's like, oh, I remember doing that, popping the hood on that. So it's funny to see this. Like you don't see these BMWs anymore. It's like things like that. Also, the computers are one thing, but then for me, it's also the vehicles like this Jeep. I remember working on these kind of Jeeps. So it's kind of funny to see these old cars too. So
yeah.
Alrighty. So overall, what would you give the movie? What would you say give the rating for this movie?
Well, I think as far as a comedy, I really think it did really good as a comedy side. It was very, there wasn't a real, like you said, there wasn't really a lot of building up on the romance or how she thought she recognized him. I think it probably could have had more on that topic, like, oh, well, this is your first time seeing me. How do you know me? Because she's new. She goes, I know you. So yeah, maybe like 6-ish. 6.
Oh, 6 out of 10. Wow, that's pretty low, don't you think?
So yeah, I mean, it was really funny. It was really funny. How to really, I really respect the topics. A lot of the topics that hit in there were very controversial in the 90s, and I really respect them for that. But I mean, there was just some scenes that were just like thrown in there that had nothing to do with the show, and it didn't really seem to have a smooth flow. It seemed, it just seemed like it would go one place to the next place, and it didn't have a smooth storyline or flow. But it was a very funny show, and I thought it was very interesting about their view on evolution. So
okay. Well, I would have to give it a little bit higher. I'd definitely say more like about an 8.5 out of 10. So
wow, that's the highest one I've heard you get for a while.
Yeah, this movie, when I saw it, I really liked the ending. And of course, over time, I've watched it a couple of times. I started to pick out the flaws with it. But when I first watched it, I ignored those flaws, like the part about having an evil person and the falling in love too quickly. I avoided that stuff. So and so I looking at it from the very first time I watched it, I'll stick with my original, like an 8.5. If I watched it now and I was nitpicking too much, I'd probably give it a lower score. But since I'm trying to look at it like the original way I saw it, with ignoring the other stuff. So.
Yeah, I just thought like it was so broken up, and they just threw a lot of stuff in there that had no connection. Like it was just like, boom, here's something for you to think about, and then never go anywhere with it.
And how do you feel about what Meryl Streep said about how she felt she wasn't really, her character was really kind of like just there. She wasn't really doing anything, and she was just there for for Albert Brooks' character to have something to talk about. She really didn't have a major contribution, so to speak. She was just there for him. So she didn't really have a major contribution for her character at all. It was just basically so Daniel could see how much of a failure he was in a way, because she was so much of a success. She was, it's basically kind of like in a way of comically mocking him as to how good she was versus how bad he was in some ways. Do you agree?
So during that time, the 90s, it was still a very male dominated world. And having a female that was stronger than the male and able to do more, again, I think it was another bold choice from the producer. I think it just hit on a lot of the topics that were going on back in the 90s, because usually the man was rescuing the woman, but in this case, Meryl, she was actually helping him come out of his shell, so to say. She was this great, beautiful person in life, and just had a lot to contribute. And I think like her character really did just enhance his character. It's like, it didn't give her anything like, oh, well, this is just a technicality, we're just watching this for fun, in her court hearing where they're putting him through the ringer. So yeah, I kind of agree with her on that point of view, because it really, her character had, her character basically just helped his character come out of his shell and build on his character, one, by setting an example, and two, by her being very open to him, it was helping him, who was pretty introverted, kind of open up. Right. But again, during that time, it was a very, very male dominated world still. So I really kind of like the fact that the woman was more like the hero in this one, like the one making the good choices and stuff, and the man,
I agree with that. Yeah, I'm not disputing that at all. I'm just from her point of view, that she said she felt like she wasn't really, her character was not really.
Yeah, I mean, basically all her character did was bring out the best in his character. It didn't have any significant role. So yeah, I do agree with her on that.
You could have, I mean, she's a very good actress. So she could have been, they could have anyone in there playing the role. It really didn't matter so much. They could have made her character stronger, and they didn't. But yeah, stronger in the sense that it was a stronger character, not her character was strong, but I mean, the character having a stronger presence, I should say, interaction, and yeah, we agree. I think we both agree on that one. So.
Yeah, I just like the fact that he wasn't rescuing her; she was rescuing him.
Yeah,
and that was kind of the opposite of a lot of the movies that were being created at that time.
Right. So,
in a lot of ways, this was kind of the coming out of the traditional thinking. So.
Okay. So, as far as other movies, can you cite any examples where there was like where what you say was the other way around, like the man was coming to the can you think of any? I'm just kind of curious. I'm trying to think of any.
A 90s movie where the man held the down the row and protected the women. Yeah. There was quite a few.
Okay, I'm just trying to think of. I couldn't think of any off the top of my head. Okay, that's cool. One of the other tropes, as they call it, is where the woman would start crying. That's another trope that's, I don't know if they're doing away with that in movies, but that's something that Siskel and Ebert used to criticize, or at least Roger Ebert would criticize a lot in his reviews. He would say that a woman would always become helpless and start crying, but the man would never become helpless and start crying, which was something that I think they're doing away with that too, which is, when you think about it, is really, I mean, the woman would just become so emotional and just start crying for no reason. And then the man would be there being all sensible, and that he would be in complete control of a situation. And that was something that he criticized about movies as well. Since you're bringing up how the male dominated aspect. That's something else that I remember too. I don't think they did. I'm not sure. I don't watch a lot of new movies, so I'm not sure. Maybe I don't know if they do that or not. So, but I do remember seeing that a lot in the older movies. So, all right.
Well, back then, I mean, it was a lot different with the acting and stuff. Now they basically just look at a screen and read their roles, you know. So there's not as much memorizing the lines and, you know, charisma, showing the different parts of your character and stuff. So I think back then it was a lot harder to be an actor or an actress than it is now.
Really?
Yeah, because you know, now they sit there and read. I mean, a lot of times they don't even show anything. They just show their facial expressions, you know, like this person is supposed to be looking at a bloody corpse, but you're not looking at the bloody corpse. You're just looking at this distressed face look on the actress, you know?
Oh, okay. Okay.
Why someone's talking about the bloody corpse in the background, you know? So I think back then was definitely, they required a lot more out of the actors and actresses back then than they do nowadays.
Okay.
Not that it's any easier. It's still very hard to, you know, become an actor and actress and get well known. But I just think that there was a lot more charisma and, you know, spontaneity in the past shows. So.
Okay. All right. Alrighty. So the final question I guess would be, would you recommend this to someone to watch?
If you love comedies and you want to laugh, I definitely recommend it.
Okay. Cool. That's a good response. Alrighty. I would recommend it too, but that's probably because I love this movie so much when I first saw it. It's always been one of my favorites. So I'm gonna recommend it regardless. So
yeah, it's a good movie. It is.
Even though I've found the flaws over the years, I overlook those flaws because I just want to remember how, like I said, how I first saw it. So let's go ahead and look at our question from earlier. Looks like we got a pretty decent response here. Let me refresh the screen one more time. So we got 84 votes so far. Looks like we got no responses yet. So 0 comments so far. If you have a lot of fears, are you more evolved or more de-evolved? What is your opinion? Leave a comment explaining your response. 83% overwhelmingly with more evolved, 11% with more de-evolved, and 6% with fear doesn't have a factor in brain evolution.
Oh, so it seems like the majority think like, yes, if you have less fears, then you use your brain more.
Yeah. So, and when this in a week or so will be, I don't know, this could change. We've had questions where we ask this and like some will have like an overwhelming percentage being one way, and we'll come back like a week later and it'll change to something else. But I don't know. We'll see. We'll see.
Only time will tell.
Yeah. So we'll see. I would like to predict, but at this point I can't predict because this question is just so deep in some ways. So it could change. It could stay the same for all I know. So I'm not going to predict on this one. So alrighty. Well, Sherry, would you like to say anything before we say goodbye?
Everybody have a great night, and again, happy Chinese New Year. Gong Hei Feng Choi.
Yeah. Chinese New Year. What is is there like a special animal for that or something, or is that how that works? I don't know.
So what Chinese New Year is, I believe in China it lasts for about a week, but it's basically the first new moon of the year is the Chinese New Year. And it changes every year, you know, whatever year the new moon falls on. And then every year they assign a different Chinese zodiac. So like 1 year will be the year of the dragon. Next year will be, I believe this year is the year of the tiger, but don't quote me on that. I got to look it up. But so it's the first new moon of the year. And every year they go through the Chinese zodiac and they assign a new zodiac to each year. So for instance, if you're a tiger in the year of the tiger, the Chinese New Year of the tiger, then that means you're going to have a very prosperous, very successful year. You know, so yeah, it just goes through the Chinese zodiac, and it's the first new moon of the year because China actually goes more on a lunar calendar than like us. So yeah, so the first new moon of every year is Chinese New Year. And usually in China, I believe it's a week celebration, a week where they start celebrating the new year.
Oh, okay. So it's kind of like almost.
Some of the traditions is they have the dragons because they believe the dragons scare away the ghosts. You know, China is very into their ancestrals and their ghosts and stuff. So if you go to like New York to Chinatown or somewhere like that, they'll have like the dragon parade, and then the dragons will run around to the different Chinatown businesses, and the owners of the business will sit out there with like little envelopes, like yellow, red, blue. Usually they do a really pretty red one, you know.
Uh-huh.
And they put money in it, and they pay these dragons to come and dance around their their company, and it's supposed to like scare off the ghosts.
Oh.
But it's the first new moon of every year.
Let's see, have you ever seen the movie What's Up, Doc? From 1972 with Barbara Streisand.
I'm not sure. I'm sorry, I don't remember. I might have seen it, and I just haven't seen it for so long I forgot it. But at this time, I don't.
Hold on a second. I'll bring something up here. You talked about the dragon. There's a scene in the movie. I don't want to get copyright, so I got to be very careful how I do this. I'm queuing it up right now. Hold on a second. I don't think I'm going to see it. Whoops. There we go. Right there. There's a scene in the movie at the very end where they're being chased through San Francisco, and they go through a Chinese New Year parade.
New Year parade.
Yes, and there's a big dragon, and it's a really funny movie that I can't see if I can find. Oh, here we go. Maybe this is it right here.
Yeah, I did go to Chinese New Year in New York one year, and we went and saw the dragon parade, and a lot of people just followed the dragon around all day, just chased the dragons all day, going to the different businesses.
Unfortunately, I can't seem to find it. But basically, imagine this scene right here where they're on their they get the dragon gets caught on top of them, so the dragon flows through the streets of San Francisco while they're being chased. So it's a funny movie. I wish maybe we could review that movie at some time. So it's pretty.
Oh, definitely, we'll have to watch that one. But yeah, so the first new moon of the year is Chinese New Year.
Okay, so I'm glad you explained it. So, but it's only once a year, though, correct? It's not like versus once for our year. So it's like once. So like it's not like they don't have multiple. Like we have. They don't have multiple ones during our year. They only have one roughly every year, like we do. Correct? Is that right? Like for
yes. Whatever day the first new moon falls on of the year is the day they'll celebrate Chinese New Year.
Okay, cool. So, and one more thing before we go, everybody, if you'd like to support our show, we have the link for NordVPN in the description below. I've used it in the past, and I find it to be very effective. So, for protecting your data, if you're trying to hide your location from certain prying eyes, if you decide to purchase the service, it will, like I said, help support what we're doing. And I believe it's more than half off, but not quite a third. Last time I looked, so it's a pretty nice deal, and we thank you for doing that. So I guess we can say goodbye if we want to say. I guess this will be the final word. Did you want to say anything before we say goodbye?
I will say Zaijian.
Zaijian.
That's goodbye in Chinese.
Oh, okay. Zaijian. Did I say it right?
Yes.
Okay, cool. All right.